Hmm. Yet again, my transitions are busted. One of these days, I'm going to figure out what is going on. Greetings, one and all. Hope you are doing well. If you're watching this sometime in the future, then welcome to you too. Tonight we're going to be adding more to this drawing. We're getting very close to when we'll take this to the art table and finish it up there. But I need to go back and keep refining this because there's a lot of details that need to be added in. And that is going to become more clear as this drawing nears its next stage, which is doing a final line version of this. I want to go a little bit more refined than what I was thinking about because I keep getting more ideas with it. So we're going to expand. This will be a fairly quiet stream unless there's an idea that comes to my head or people ask questions, but otherwise I'm just going to press on. Actually, there's one thing I do want to bring up before we dive into this. And that is, very few times do I make something that really works and doesn't have too many problems. One of those things is actually Stream Radio. I'm actually quite baffled that it is continuing to work. The problems I'm having with some of the audio is the transition stuff for the OBS side, but not the radio. It's kind of a nice little realization. Greetings, Bastion. Light is distracted with fashion at the moment. Poor Bastion has to distract Light with fashion. Hope you're doing well, sir. Doing good. Well, hopefully the area down there is has some nice weather. It's been very nice up here in Alaska. A little rainy, but beautiful temperatures. His airbrushing technique is One that I really enjoy. I don't do it as often as I used to, um, but it really does offer some pretty nice details. It allows you to be able to kind of rough out an idea, and if you're not sure where to go with it, sometimes it'll give like suggestions based upon where the airbrush starts to play tricks on your eyes. It can be very helpful. Some people only use the airbrush tool. I used to use it far more. Then I saw that people were using hard brushes and having some good success, and so I gave that a try, and now I can do both of them, although I do have favorability for this. It just makes it hard to refine it later on, so it's not a technique you really want to do a whole lot. By the way, a reminder to honor your military family and friends today, and for today and tomorrow, and be able to remember the sacrifices that were made for our nation to have the freedoms that it does. You know, we kind of forget that we are in a nation. I'm not going to say about freedoms, okay? This is not about that. We're in a nation that has given us a great many blessings. It has been a wonderful location to live, to grow up in. It is the ideal for many nations to be like America. But in the last couple of years, we have seen an eroding of our culture. It's hard to describe how devastating this is. It's not just the fact that it is giving us bad videos or games or whatnot, bad movies or games, and that we are not able to delight in them as much as we used to. Oh, I want to be able to watch this really edgy video that came out in the 90s, and now people won't allow me to watch it anymore. No, I'm not talking about that stuff. But yet I am. The loss of those things are not bad. See, in the last couple of years, we have started to realize there are consequences for our values, both good and bad. Our nation is eroding because, in a large part, our culture is dying. Our soldiers gave us the opportunity to find peace and prosperity. And what have we done with it? A great many of us have squandered it. I don't even think the older generation understands how much has been squandered. We need to get a grip as a nation, as a culture. If we really want to be able to say, yes, we want to honor our troops and whatnot, we need to stop degrading the thing that they fought for. How many people do you know that are given a brand new car for a gift? It's your birthday, you get a brand new car. Didn't happen to me or anything, but I know some people where that did happen. There's a lot of people I know that if they are just given something, they destroy it. Sometimes not intentionally. It's more like they just get careless. They don't know, they don't understand the pain and sweat that went into getting it. They're like, oh, it's just money. It grows on trees. They forget that money represents effort, work, labor. It is a representation of pain. I'd like to show you something. Someone comes up and gives you $10. How many of you would risk your life to earn this? Not many. You have to be really down on your luck to want to try and do that for $10. If I were instead to say, hey, by the way, I'm an Alaskan, okay? We carry money with us. So someone comes up and says, I'll give you $150 to do something dangerous. Well, you might actually start to think twice. And you're like, well, how severe is it? How dangerous is it? You're not doing it for the paper. Let me get that straight. You're not doing that for the paper. You're doing it because you're getting to basically have a conversion rate between your manual labor and this. This is nothing. All it does is represent what you did in the physical form or in the creative space. Whatever you did that generated labor. It is not about whether or not you print the stuff. It represents labor. So if somebody comes along and gives you a brand new car, say, hey, surprise, guess what? You got a brand new car. And you take your keys, you go out to your car, and you're like, wow, I'm special. I get this nice car. Maybe you're humble about it. Maybe you're like, wow, I'm really blessed. And you're driving along and then you crash it. You're like, oh, well, I mean, it was just a car that was given to me. You don't care about it. In the same way as if you bled and sweated to get it. For somebody who's just given money, they look at that and they're like, oh, it's just paper. If you worked for it and you toiled for it, it has value. You look at that and you don't see money. You don't see paper. You see a representation of every bead of sweat that came down your forehead. We have been given a great gift as a nation. A gift that was bought for off of the sweat and blood of the past generations. And what do we do with it? We squander it. How can we truly be thankful and grateful if we squander what we've been given? Reaching the hundreds down in your neck of the woods, your neck of the desert. Wow. Up here, we're breaking 70s. Anyway. I think that we are incredibly ungrateful as a nation. And so when I see people just saying, hey, be grateful for your freedoms, to me, it's like they're not even saying anything. Why do they care? Oh, I get the freedom to go out and insult my neighbor. No, but it's the freedom of speech. I have the right. Is that? No, that's squandering. That's wasting. That's throwing it away. You're going to lose it if you do that. I get the right to keep and bear arms, but not to use them in bad ways. But it's my right. It's my freedom. People died for it. Yes, fighting tyrants. Don't become the tyrant that your forefathers would have been fighting. It troubles me to no end about that. Well, earlier today, I found out that our nation is in a pretty tough bind in terms of military preparations. War is not guaranteed on the horizon, at least not yet, but it's definitely coming our way. And right now, we're in a pretty bad bind. There's a lot of people squandering our resources, a lot of people squandering the upper hand we've been given. I think we need to prosecute Bezos and Bill Gates, Soros, anybody who has made deals with foreign powers to weaken our nation, squandering the goodwill that our forefathers gave us, the good future we were given. They need to be arrested because they have been making deals with very, very evil nations, weakening us in our future. I know that's a bit extreme. Maybe it's not the right way to go about it, but something needs to happen. Some form of prosecution needs to take place because we are in such a bad position as a nation right now. Squandered from our upper hand that we had, our great and perfect royal flush that we were dealt, and we have thrown it away. When the enemy comes knocking on our gates, we can thank the rich, greedy snobs that for another yacht made deals with the devil. I'm too too heated on that subject. I'm gonna take this next moment to calm down and refocus. One of the things I want to show with this letter right here is something I remember hearing at a couple of different museums I went to. I got to see some of these letters. Right here, Milo's going to be holding a letter from the past. And one of the things I want to show with it is the way that people would write to preserve paper. Now, paper was quite spendy back then, and they had a couple of different ways to be able to do it, to be able to make the most out of it. One of the things is that they made sure to write in small letters. So rather than say, actually, wait a minute, they wouldn't have been writing that. They would have been saying, greetings to you. How are you doing? They would take something like this and they would write it a bit differently. First off, they all, the majority of people wrote in cursive. So instead, they'd be writing something like, I'm not very good at cursive, but you'll get the general idea from here. Notice how much that consolidates that space. So, writing with fine cursive is one way to be able to do that. Another way is to go about and do this thing where you write like this. So you have your text being written in this sort of a manner. Well, if you were strapped for cash, what you would do is you would rotate the letter and you would continue like this. And yes, a lot of the words would get merged together in that sense, and it would become a little hard to read. Sometimes you'd use a slightly different ink, things like that. But for the most part, you could actually save quite a bit of space by doing that. And you could have a whole lot of paper consolidated down to just a few pages for some pretty big documents. Now, the more important the document, the more you're not going to want to do this. But there's one letter that I saw where the person writing did another direction. And so it was an absolute mess when you're trying to read it. And I could not read it. But apparently people back in the day had good keen eyes to be able to see that sort of stuff. That's quite impressive to think that our modern generation struggles to write, and that people back then were doing really fine detail with just quill pens, and they were able to communicate so much on single sheets of paper. Well, that's what this letter is going to be right here. It's going to be 2 sheets of paper, just because it makes it a little bit visually interesting for this. Well, actually, maybe this will be the envelope. No, yeah, we're going to do this one page. Now that I think about it, because I do want to be historically, not maybe accurate, but at least historically inspired. So we'll have it be one letter, and it's going to be sealed like they would do back in the olden days. Have it sealed, and it will be written on front and back, and with this with cross lines as well. For the backstory, so you'll remember during the, well, for those that remember, which not many people will remember this at this point, Milo's backstory was done on the fly. And some people remembered it quite vividly. They were there for the time that it was asked about. And the story was a fairly complex sort of background. I spent just an afternoon trying to come up with every sort of historic reference I could of to try and inspire Milo's character, and just kind of merge them all into one. I didn't think a whole lot about the way that they were going to go together. I just was starting to ramble based upon things that I had remembered seeing in the past. Well, now that I've had the chance to think about it, I can be able to start to section out some of those things. So the storyline is going to be traveling in a... I should probably want to reposition some of these, but it's going to be traveling from his childhood to the point where he heads west, and that's where everything gets left behind. And this will be like a way to get people up to speed on some of the visuals of what that would have looked like, because the future story will become more clear as we press forward. And this stuff will, like flames in a dying fire, they will fade out, and they will have left an impression upon the reader or the viewer or whatnot, and help to give them some basis for how these things came about. And then say, okay, now you understand the basics, leave it behind and press forward. Be back in just a second. when the story eventually does come out, one of the things you're going to see barely referenced is anything that had to do with the live streams. This is one of the things I had to spend a lot of time debating whether or not to keep some of these things or to and incorporate them, or to leave them as basically shadows of the past. Well, I had a really hard time trying to figure out the best way to pull that off. And so, for the most part, the past of the live streams will not exist in the story. And I think that's probably for the best. And what's more, I think enough time has passed where the people that would have wanted to hear that, that they're not necessarily around to want that anymore. Or they've forgotten about it, or any number of things. It's completely understandable. And thus, Milo has to transition into a new sort of storyline. And that's where it goes back to the original storyline. And it's been quite the experience to try and think of some of those things. Hopefully, that story materializes soon, because I would really like to be able to tell it at this point. The last few days have been very productive for the secret projects. Notched off another, or almost notched off another big part of the whole ordeal. Last year, I tried to do something very similar, and I jumped the gun on it. I just released it, and I kind of paid the price for that later on. And I always regretted that I did not take more time to refine it. And a lot of the plans fell apart, sadly, as a result of jumping the gun on that. Well, I'm trying to avoid that this time around. But as a result, all sorts of new challenges present themselves. But I gotta say, I do like challenges. But man, I would like to just be able to say, okay, now we're underway, and have all these things start to come out. Maybe someday soon. If nothing else, very soon for the first wave of that stuff. Well, technically it would be the second wave, because the first wave was last year. This would be kind of like what that first year was supposed to be. That's the hope. We'll find out if that actually transpires. I would like to put in some Easter eggs into this letter itself, but I don't think anyone's going to notice. I did some Easter eggs a while back. I put them onto my Instagram. I was wondering if anybody would notice them. Well, I found out that nobody even gave it a second thought. They saw it and thought that it was just artistic, and they didn't bother to find out if there was a secret behind it or anything. So I never quite did it again. I spent a lot of kind of thinking for that, and that fell flat. Maybe I'll do another puzzle in the future. Somebody likes to experiment, so sometimes I'll see something like that and want to give it a shot. And I'm not above saying, okay, you know what, that didn't work. Pause, back up, reevaluate, and address it again. Because I never want to give up on an idea. I always pause, step back, and try and figure out a better way to approach it. So hopefully that will kind of happen with this, with going to the next gear for this whole ordeal. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that that I wanted to make sure was seen in Milo's past is that he comes from a merchant family. Now we forget just how many merchants there were in the world. They were everywhere. It was a huge industry. By today's finances, it would dwarf almost every other industry just in terms of importance. It was like the tech world of back then. Everything of value was done through trade. It wasn't until the Industrial Revolution that really got turned on its head. But even so, trade continued to be very, very profitable. Well, one of the things I wanted to be in Milo's story was that he comes from merchants. To show just how during time of political unrest and chaos, that doesn't matter where you come from, you get swept up into it. And that's what happens to Milo. He comes from a wealthy background, very wealthy, but because of the conflict, everything falls apart. And it shows how still the ideals that were instilled in him from the beginning influence his future. It also helps to course correct him because he goes down the wrong path as a result. To be pulled back by the memories that were instilled in him from his youth. I wanted to pass that part on in the story because it's actually one of the most important aspects of raising kids. You see it all throughout history that you have to train your kids if you want them to stay on the narrow path. And Milo's the example of somebody who goes off the beaten trail, who starts to go down the wrong path, but is course corrected as a result of his parents' intervention. Even though, when it's all said and done, he's been an outcast, their teaching still inspires him. It's also this idea that I've heard from some folks that somehow the elite class of the 1800s was immune from the chaos of the peasants, and that was definitely not true. And one of the things that is going to be seen in Milo's backstory is he sees France, which is what this part is about. He travels to France in his youth, and in doing so, he learns from history just how the bureaucracy, how the elites are actually in terrible jeopardy when things go south. And when he returns home, it influences him in a bad way to begin with, but it ends up giving him guidance as well. So both from family and history, that inspires his future. Helps to correct the mistakes of his future, my bad. This process of silhouetting a character helps out a bit when you're having trouble trying to find the right form. It's easier for the eye to correct things if they're a silhouette. And by doing this, it helps me to see the mistakes that I'm making. Because I am making many, many mistakes with this. I don't draw this position very often. It's not a position most people are going to be drawn. I don't have a model that I can be able to refer to. And so I have to try and do this from scratch. By silhouetting like this, it helps to get the brain to think about the image in simpler forms. So that way you can be able to figure out what is missing, and then you can go back later on with the details again. Just be right back. Okay, that was interesting. All the audio on my side got cut out. Don't know if it happened anywhere else, but at least it did for me. Alright. Let's shake things up a little bit. Okay. All right. So, by the way, I am getting very close to the user interface being updated for Silverado. I was working on it earlier today, got thwarted by a piece of code that I didn't quite understand what was going on. What was that? Yes, indeed. That is meant to be forgotten. But anyway, Silverado is going to get updated probably later on this week. But do I upload it separately, or do I upload with everything else? Either way, we're getting very, very close to everything getting finished. Right now, I was down to like 4 tasks I had to complete last time. I'm down to about 3. It means 3 more before the big event takes place. Anyway. one of the things that have been fixed is some of the login issues that we were having. Anyways, greetings, Rico. How are you doing? And what is life like in your neck of the woods? Dog roaming outside. I keep wondering how long until an animal, like a wild animal, shows up at my window. It's happened in the past, but thankfully nothing like that has happened during my streaming days. There's one time when I looked over to my window, and it was first year that I was living up here in Alaska, and I heard something big set down right next to the window. And I was looking out. I didn't want to turn on a light to spook it or whatever it was, but I couldn't tell what it was. Big creature. Well, I realized after the next morning that was probably a grizzly. Grizzlies will bed down for the evening, and that will become like a temporary den. Well, the area that I was at, the window had an overhang, so I can only guess that it was a bear. But it stayed there the entire night. Then it disappeared by time morning came around, so I never got a good look at it. Doing all right, was moving stuff around. How about you? Well, it's been a productive last few days. Got a couple more big tasks to get done before the update to all things Castercraft takes place. It's been a very, very lengthy process, but we're getting there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's been a lot of fun. It's also been incredibly frustrating. Oh well. I need to sleep. Night, everyone. Good night, Bastion. Rest well, and we will see you next time, whenever that is. Be civil, sir. By the way, this hairstyle right here that I'm putting on Milo is actually one that I'm looking at right now of some of the children of the upper class. So it's actually modeled off of an old photograph. I'm not doing it justice, though. It's close enough for the image. Well, I have to make a trip up to Barrow, Alaska. That's going to be happening in a few days. I completely spaced on that when I was planning the restart to all the streams, and so that's the last big push before things calm down a little bit. But that being said, it is going to be an interesting experience. I've been up there once before, and this will make the second time that I've gotten to make this journey. And I'll tell you what, it's It's a fascinating location. Definitely would not want to live there, though. It takes a certain type of person to really thrive in that environment. And I was not made for that. I need trees, and I need mountains, and that region lacks both. But some people absolutely love it, and they can't imagine being anywhere other than that. Which, more power to them. Let's see. Milo in pajamas. Just about. Each of these images here is supposed to represent part of the journey of the character. So it starts off with memories of his past, the things that will help to stabilize him in his future. It goes into regret, life choices that lead him down into a time of rebellion. And rebellion begets rejection. And rejection eventually breaks, and there is renewal. And so that's going to be the journey of Milo in the campfire. And so now I have to take all these ideas, which are loose elements, and go back and tighten up the images, make them more refined, that sort of thing. This is going to be one of the most ambitious pieces for Milo, period, at least in terms of what I can do. Mostly because, for right here, right now, I guess, because you never know. But you can't make things too complex if you have a complex story. It's something I've been learning, is that the more complex the story idea, the more loose your artwork needs to be, because you're just unable to really do it all. And that is something that has been very painful for me to realize. But I've been slowly letting go on some of the perfection sort of ideas that I have. And hopefully that means they'll come out faster. How goes your artwork, Rico? What sort of things have you been working on? I'm trying to learn how to draw a motorcycle. Ooh. Some people are really, really, really good when it comes to machinery. I am not such a person. My skill set is characters, animals, things like that. And I learned that early on. I can do machinery, but man, it is tough. So if you can figure that out, then more power to you. Choppers, to be exact. Choppers. Oh. Kind of like the type of motorcycle that appears in the golly. Ghost Rider that appears in the Ghost Rider story. Where's the mesh work? I think it's this, but Distort skew perspective. Free transform? No. Where is this? However, I'm going to have a Viking as a rider. That will be epic. He's on the highway to Valhalla. Okay, transform. Perfect. Edit. Transform. Mesh transform. Why is it grayed out? What's going on? Why can't I select this? Oh, wait a minute. It's because I have transform on already. Yeah, there we go. There, that was easy. How to train a hog. That will be epic. Hope it turns out well. There's I know a couple of people where when they draw vehicles, for example, they can do it to a degree of perfection that is jaw-dropping. I don't know what it is about artists that can do stuff like that, but they can see machinery and they can very quickly create very realistic looking shading. And I'm going to demonstrate what I've seen people do, and by no means can I do this myself. I'm very, very bad at this technique. But they'll come along and they'll do something along the lines of this. Very quickly, they'll just start creating the basic shapes of the vehicle, and to them, they just come along and it takes them no effort to just use a lasso tool and to generate the sort of vehicle parts that they need. Now, to some people, this is almost like second nature to them. They can just come along, quickly paint in the parts, and they all start to blend together perfectly. And so this is my bad attempt at trying to do how they go about the process. Change the color so that way it stands out from the background a little bit. So they'll do something along the lines of this. And then they'll go back along and say, hey, I'm going to add in some shine. And then they'll refine it even more. They'll throw in like reflections of what is in the background that are to immense detail. Then they'll just smudge it a little bit and they'll be good to go on to the next part. They can generate an entire vehicle in seconds. By comparison, okay, minutes, hours. It does take them hours. But it is so refined and clean looking that I'm just looking at it thinking, the things I do have more of an organic feel to it. I mean, you can see it right here. There's kind of a rounded structure there. It's not the angular sort of planes that they're going to be doing for stuff like that. I mean, this is more akin to how their planes look, and they can still make it look wonderful and amazing. But then I found out that a lot of those people struggle with organics. Everybody's got a skill set. So some people are really good at that stuff. I'm not, and I know that. I'm good with characters. I'm good with living things or plants. But machines, while I have some stories I would love to draw machines for, I can't. There's some people, they draw robots all the time. When I was at college, I decided to give it a shot. Draw a robot. Well, little did I know, I was going to spend hours, and my robot looked flat. It looked boring, and it lacked any sort of elegance to it. And I thought, how is it that I can draw a character, but I can't draw a freaking machine? I spent a lot of hours on that one just to be disappointed. I haven't really drawn any machines since then. It's too hard, it's too lengthy. Could I do it? Yes, but it would be a very, 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 very painful process. And there's another guy I saw. He made an entire animated short with robots as if it was nothing. Problem is that trying to get hired to draw robots, that's actually quite challenging. So one of the reasons why I think Transformers does so well is that people that are, mechanically minded for stuff like that, they thrive on it. Yeah, and Gundam. Makes sense. Would think people would draw best of what they're interested the most. Tis true. But also, it's what you're surrounded with growing up. So for me, I was surrounded with history. I was surrounded by paintings, and for me, realism in human form and in nature was more interesting to me than anything mechanical. It wasn't until my college years I actually found an interest in things mechanical, but by then I'd already been put on the path of traditional art and history so much that it was hard for me to try and take up the machinery as well. By the way, Rico, how's the I remember you mentioned about the position you were looking at. Did that materialize, or are you still trying to figure that out? turning my fingerprints Friday. Once that clears, then they'll give me an application to apply for the school. You know, I used to, it is interesting, the culture that we're in, that now we have to get fingerprinted. I understand why things have gone so far into chaos that it has to happen. But not a fan of that. That's how we have to go about things. But then again, we don't have reputations that can precede us, so we don't stay in the same area. It's hard for reputations to be built up appropriately. Applications go out to the four winds. You need some way for people to verify what sort of person you are. And unfortunately, fingerprints are one of those things. Now, there's some things about looking into people's past I'm not too keen on, or into who somebody is. And one of those is with the Real ID. I'm not a fan of it. What they can do with it, I understand the reasoning behind it, but all it would take is one tyrant in the future to just take it and flip it on its head. We're good for now. I have no problem now doing it, but I resist it because I know what they'll do in the future with it. I gotta figure out a balance for things like that. Because I do get a bit paranoid about stuff like that. But I do realize that times kind of demand stuff like that. Well, one of the things that it may not be on the top of your list, but if you're really keen on doing that if you're really keen on going to the education space, Alaska has a lot of positions for stuff like that out in the bush. Again, not a super popular idea, but it does pay very, very, very well. There's a school out in the, out on Little Diomede Island, for example. Tiny, tiny school. And as I understand, teachers will go there for a short time. They'll be there teaching the students at almost like a fevered pace, and then they'll leave. And I've known a couple people that do things like that. It takes a certain type of person really to want to do that for a long time. Most people seem to get burned out after a year or two. Well, see, the substitution is to test if I want to chase a teaching career. If I like it, then I'll go back to college. Try and make sure that to definitely find the cheapest option that you can. Man, college is so expensive. I know a guy, he wanted to go into one occupation, and he got out of college, found out he didn't want to do it, then went back into college to become a dentist. And so then he had to get a massive debt on top of the debt he already had to be able to get his second degree in medical practices. He did not. It did not pan out so well for his finances, but he made it work. Greetings, Prism Animations. Drawing looks really cool. Already it matches that lo-fi vibe. Much appreciated. This is the drawing that we have so far. This is going to be turned into a 2D... sorry, not... My brain's a bit shot right now. Into a hand-drawn piece in one of our future sessions. This is just trying to get the blueprints figured out for it. Anyway, how you doing, Prism? What sort of projects have you been working on? This right here is part of the a much bigger series of projects that are all coming together. The announcement stream for that will be relatively soon-ish. It's been a chaotic spring. Not one I've been liking a whole lot. Hopefully, I'm able to kind of get back up to speed on everything. We'll see. Still waiting for the movie to be made about this cowboy. Fortunately, trying to pull off a movie about this guy is going to be very, very hard. That's why the next best thing is going to be taking place. To be announced. But don't worry, it's there's been a lot of thought, a whole lot of thought has been put into this character. And his story is far more developed than I think most people realize. When the announcement about this comes out, it will make sense. This is like the experiment. Tease what is going to happen in the sense of that the final, the first official product, you could say, of this, I want to be at the 90-95% finished point before I announce it. Right now it's about 80%. Trying to get clients for 3D modeling and for GFX for Roblox devs. Ooh, interesting. Hope you have some success. The movie would go hard. Believe me, the amount of thought I've put into the narrative is massive. It's kind of interesting, actually. The way that the story really got sparked was off of a mistake. And it's kind of like a lesson in that things that go wrong don't necessarily aren't necessarily a failure. it usually is happening because honestly, God is probably trying to teach you something. And for me, when Milo's origin, the thing that got this whole process of trying to figure out the character started, when that fell apart is when the character was born. Up until then, the character was kind of like he was literally a throwaway character. I wrote down in my notes, character is not supposed to live. Character is supposed to die very quickly. It's supposed to be a very quick story, over and done with. And now it's a multi-part story. It's been very interesting trying to figure out the scripting for it. Very interesting. Actor will be Russell Crowe. I think he'll be just a little too old by the time the whole story is finished. That'd be something. Actually, the very first thing I wrote about the planning of Milo was I wanted to write the end of his story. And so it's kind of interesting. The part that inspired the entire narrative is the part that nobody will see. If I was to create one part per year, it'd be 7 years until you see the conclusion of the story. The end of the story has already been written, and the beginning of the story has been written, and everything in between has been in development. As a result, well, I think he'll be just a little too old by the time you can actually get a hold of him. Not quite. Here's my mentality with this, and this is actually something that I've been after. A couple years ago, somebody that I came across was trying to make a studio. It was a startup studio. It had great potential, but they had a very different sort of mindset for coming up with stories. And for them to come up with a story, they thought, okay, we have our story idea. We're going to make the story to its conclusion, and then they would figure out the story along the way. I take the opposite sort of direction. I want the end to be the goal, meaning that everything needs to lead up to this point. So let me draw this a different color. I want this to be the end goal, meaning that to figure this out, I start with this side over here, and then I think, where do you have to begin to end up at this point? That's how I write. Because of it, it takes a very long time, because then you want to see how these different things are going to impact the story going on. Everything needs to have a point. Everything needs to have a purpose. Do you have an action sequence that's right here? Well, you better have the introduction to that back here. Are you going to have a character that gets betrayed right here? Well, you better have a tip-off right here of what's going to happen. That's how I write my stories. It's very lengthy, it takes forever, but once you get this part figured out, the rest of it starts to fall into place. Right now, I'm in the process of getting the rest of the pieces to fall into place. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But the first bit that you'll see is... So this is the last you're going to see of Milo for a while. When the rest of the story is figured out, that's when you'll see him again. Because then it means we're off to the races. If we get to the races. always something is going to come up and thwart things. Kind of like the last Lego animation that I've been doing. I have a couple of scenes rendered, and then I keep coming across problems. And I learned that I need to make corrections. But everything's going to have issues that occur, and you just got to be able to roll with the punches. With Milo, similar. His story began about, at this point, 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago. And then 3 years ago, it ended horribly. Horrible ending. And I was sick, flat out on my back, horrible fevers, and I couldn't be able to finish the story, which I had planned for the story at that point. That day I was going to kill the character. And the Lord looked down at me and was like, well, we're going to put you out on your back so that you can't get up and do it. And so rather than have the character walk off into the sunset or have the character get killed, instead, the character transformed, and he went from being a live stream character to now being a character who has a legitimate story. I pray this happens, and if not, well, it's not meant to be. But I'll at least give it a shot. One of the things I've been drawing in the background, behind the scenes, is learning how to do better things in relation to the American West. Mostly because that is a big part of that. I don't know what the story of Milo is going to end up being created as. Will it be a book? Will it be a graphic novel? Will it be something else? I don't know. Probably not a game, because that would take forever. Probably not a movie, because that would take forever. If it's a graphic novel, it would take it forever. Oh my goodness. Just the amount of material that I have right now would end up being probably about between 15 and 20 issues, just based upon the content that's already there. It'll be an anime. Honestly, I would love to make an anime of this. I would have so much fun making that. I don't have a team to do that. The amount of labor to do that would be staggering. But it's also something you can do with a team of about 10 people. Maybe Milo will become an anime. Maybe he won't. But I tell you what, there is a story that I have. The one that I was writing before Milo, that I got put on hold because of Milo, with Christian Bale. That'd be something. No, there's an anime I want to make. It's not Milo, although Milo would be a lot of fun to make. It's the story that I was writing beforehand. And that's the one that I'm not even going to tell like the title of it, because I think it's that unique. It's a sci-fi story that is very grounded, you could say. 4-part story, and it would take probably take a team of 10 to 15 people, the equivalent of 2 years' work to pull it off, if I'm to gauge this correctly based upon the things I've been researching. About 2 years to pull it off for the first part. And so that means an 8-year span to make all 4 parts. I would love to do that. And honestly, that is my dream right now, to pull off that story. Sometimes we're given dreams and we're given the opportunity to pursue them to their completion. I also realize there's a lot of times we're given dreams because God is trying to guide us in a different direction, and sometimes that dream will take us there. That doesn't always mean that dream will come about. I can hope. Doesn't mean it'll happen. But if it does, I think it would be very epic. And there's so many stories I want to tell you guys. So many stories. Right now, if I was to just tell you some of the largest story that I have, like right now, that I could pull up, it would be about a 4-hour read. That's how long the story is. And that's just the first part. So, yeah, hopefully it'll happen. We'll see. You can put anything in anime and it just peaks. That's how good the anime art style is. Indeed. Now there is one grave concern with the art world right now, and that is the introduction of all that AI nonsense. Even anime is in jeopardy. There's a lot of artists now that are going to be in a tough bind. I don't have the answers. I have ideas about how you can kind of fix some things, but I don't have actual tangible solutions. I don't have the resources, I don't have the experience to be able to go out and say, hey, I got an idea to help save the industry. I got theories. But until they can work in my own life, I can't be able to say this is how the industry needs to be able to address some of these problems. But right now, the industry of artists is collapsing hard. And I don't know. It makes some projects all the more feasible because of AI. It also makes them far more difficult to pull off because of it. Because now it's thwarting good stories from coming out because the whole environment's going to become so saturated. And people are going to tune it out. So that means you have to try and find another medium to try and tell the story in an effective manner. But what is that medium? It's probably not games, because games are going to be the next to be hit. It's not VR, because VR doesn't really capture the same level of interest and emotion that you kind of need for that stuff to take place. I should have started with this tool to begin with. There was a guy who I was talking with about the art world, and his business has fallen apart because of everything. That's one of the reasons why I don't have any hopes that these things that my dreams will kind of come to reality. Because in the end, the whole industry is in free fall. And I don't know what the future holds. So right now, I'm just going to create what I can, put it out there, and say, folks, if we want to take this to the next level, it's in the fans' court. If they want it to take it to the next level, well, no. So here's the idea. You're going to see this with the announcement stream later on. So I'm going to use Milo as the example, okay? The story of Milo is, right now, it is 5 parts. It could be 6, it could be 7. It kind of depends on how the story progresses. The end is for certain set in stone. But the stuff between now and then, up in the air. right now, my goal is to create some form of print. And this is going to be part 1. This is the thing that is in development. I have no idea if this will work, but if nothing else, oh, come on. If nothing else, it's a start. But at this point, the idea is that it's going to be put out there. And then the fans, and this is me trying to figure out how to get around the industry, because the industry is just so problematic right now. So at that point, it's going to go to the fans, which there aren't a whole lot of fans anymore. At the peak of Milo's adventures, Milo had a followership of about 70 people. That's as best as I can figure. So originally it was about 70 people. I don't think it's going to be 70 anymore. I think it's right now probably, if I'm to be completely honest, it is probably about 10. That is the amount of people that even know who Milo is at this point and would even care about his story. But from there, I can know whether or not I need to go into a full-out publication. And if that happens, then, and only then, will the idea for, we'll just do this, a poster. Milo, the film, will take place. To get to this point, right here, which is going to be very, very low scale sort of production compared to what I want it to be, you have to get past point 1, and that is this point right here. Why am I doing it in this structure? Because things are never done the same way more than 2 or 3 times. After it's been done 2 or 3 times, people start to oversaturate a market. Right now, if I was to try and go through normal publication, it would be very difficult, and I know a whole lot of people who have gone broke trying to get to that point. You need to find an in-between, and right now my favorite solution to that is to focus on the people that this will be targeting. The people are the ones that are going to say, yes, we like this, we want to see more of it. If they're not happy, then you probably shouldn't be making it. I know somebody who skipped this point. He took this route. He went straight, not to publication of a book, he went straight to movie. He lost everything as far as I know. All of it, all of his improvements, all of his preparations, gone. All because he rushed this point. I'm too wary about that. I'm paranoid about it, you could say. And so thus, this is why I'm going about this in the present manner. I may be wise for this, I may be foolish. I don't know. There's nobody to guide me on this path. Nobody to say this is the way to do it. So I'm gambling. That's one of the reasons why I do most of the stuff behind the scenes. I've not been live streaming as much. I've not been uploading videos because I'm trying to get this thing done. And And if I get it done, then that redirects a whole lot of my efforts. If not, well, back to the drawing board. There was a guy. Yeah. There's a guy I was trying to get a studio started with a couple of years ago. You have to go to sleep. Have a good night. Same to you, Rico. Same to you. Hope the opportunity for a substitute teacher pans out for you. Good luck to you, sir, and may God bless. There's a guy I was trying to do a studio with a couple of years ago. We were trying to jump the gun. We had an idea, we had a vision, but we had a very big difference in how to go about the process. And so thus, when the project got started, well, it fell apart almost immediately. It's a real shame because I like that story. It was a good story. And maybe it will still happen one day, but it won't happen for a while. But it had so much potential as a story. The story was unsuccessful. We couldn't get anybody to participate. We were two guys trying to make a video and trying to make a short film, and you need more than that. You need actors, you need actresses, you need artists. And that's when I started leaning into animation, because I realized nobody can make this stuff if you aren't willing to put pen to paper, if you're not willing to make it yourself. Greetings there, Callisto. How are you doing? Are things any better? But anyway, that's the reason why some of these things take a while, is because you're trying to figure out solutions to problems that you encountered in the past. Some of the problems are going to still be there, and some of them are not. But I'm overthinking it, so that way I hopefully make fewer mistakes when it's all said and done. Doing fine, and you? Things are going well. It's been productive last couple of days. The weather has been very nice up here. It is getting a little bit of rain, a little bit of sunshine. Haven't seen any moose in a while. I kind of hope to see those in a few days. That reminds me, a couple of years ago, this is Alaska for you. So we have moose everywhere. You walk down the street, you're going to find a moose, or at least signs that a moose has been there within the last few hours. Well, the moose come in from the wilderness, and they'll live in the village, or live in the town, or sometimes the city. And so there's a couple of times when everyone will be told, hey, don't go to this parking lot because there's a moose in the area. Don't go to this on this walking trail because there's a moose in the area. Well, one day we got a news bulletin that came out and said, hey, everyone, if you want to go to the store, be very careful. There's a moose and her newborn calf that was born on a little patch of grass in the middle of this parking lot. And so the first thing that little moose became aware of was all the people around with cameras photographing it. But the moose felt safe there because, you know what? When you're among people, you don't have to worry about bears and wolves. So the moose thrive in that sense. I'm glad that they find safety in the city because they're wonderful animals. Symmetrical ruler. Let's try this. There we go. Wonderful. All right, where is the reference? This will help out the 2D drawing, the paper and pen drawing so much, because trying to draw each of these individually is a lot easier in a digital manner. Then you can correct it, and then you can, troubleshoot it from there. Trying to draw this out by hand, that'd be so difficult. I've done it before, and it is not easy, and it doesn't look good. So I was over at the coffee shop this weekend, and I overheard some folks that had traveled up here to Alaska to work. there's a lot of people that move to Alaska just for the summer to work. And then they make their money and then they head on back. A lot of people end up staying, which is always fascinating to think about, how many people actually do end up becoming permanent residents. A lot of people don't plan that. And seeing people that are brand new to the state, and then people like, hey, what do you think of the state? And like, oh, wow, this is so wonderful. We didn't think it was going to be this nice. And then you look at them and think, I wonder if they're actually going to end up staying here long term. You never know. But either way, we're now in the summer months when a lot of people move up here for the summer. We're going to be going on for just a few more minutes, then we'll call it there. We now know the major composition here, and we now have the story elements that need to be brought up. This is more for my own understanding, so that way there's like a foundation for the future of the story. You have to start somewhere, and this right here is, this picture in many ways is that starting place. It isn't completely that way, but it is definitely one of the final pieces of the puzzle to try and figure out some of these aspects. I'm testing out a lot of ideas on this, so hopefully it pans out. Just a reminder that over the when I get back from my next trip, we're going to be having some longer streams. These streams are going to be taking place earlier in the day, and they're going to last about a good solid 5 hours, maybe 6 hours. I want to try and make it a regular occurrence, but not super regular. It's probably going to be like once a month, once every 2 months. But I do have a couple I'm going to be testing those out again. We used to do several streams like that. In fact, there were some art streams where it would go on for that long. Those were fun to do, but man, they were tiring. Especially when you have to get up for work and, that becomes a bit of a challenge. That's one of the reasons why they actually took place, is that during that time frame, I was in between jobs and I didn't have any sort of pressure to finish early. Now I'm in the time frame where I do need to start doing that. And that's why we haven't had any of those long streams since then. The last major one we had, I think, was the comic that I did for Light. That was a long time ago now. And that was around the time that this commission took place. This is a commission. And he got delayed because of that. So here's a thought. What inspires you to do something right or wrong? What is that motivation behind you? Because I've been thinking about this quite a bit over the last few years. We've brought this subject up before. There's a lot of people in this world that don't have any sort of inspiration behind doing something right or doing something wrong. A lot of people are living the moment, which can feel good when you're doing it, but it always comes with immense consequences as a result. And we don't usually see those consequences until they've already happened. But when you are trying to go through life, and you're trying to make a decision, do you stop and wonder, is this the right thing to do or is this the wrong thing to do? And if so, how do you come about to your conclusion? That's very much the sort of story that you see playing out right here. Making decisions. What inspires you? What drives you forward? What gives you wisdom and inspiration? Because I dare say a lot of us know down deep what is inspiring us, even if others don't. Kind of like Milo's character. Milo is heavily influenced by his past, but it's not something where he makes, where it necessarily guarantees that he's going to make the right decision. Sometimes he makes the wrong decision as a result. But it eats at him, and he's trying to do the right thing because his memory, his past, the way he was raised, is inspiring him to press forward, to try and improve, to try and correct. This right here is going to be younger Milo, so he's not going to have nearly as full of facial hair. Fun fact, facial hair gets thicker the older you get. And so thus, a lot of men don't really have the ability to grow thick beards or thick mustaches until they get to their later years. For me, mine is actually incredibly wiry. It is very slow growing, and it is also very tough. And so it's okay. Getting into the weeds here. Some of the most painful slivers I have had in my hand is from whiskers that get stuck on it, and then I'm trying to pull out a whisker as if it's a sliver. That's the sort of hair that I have. It also doesn't grow in super thick. It has been getting thicker as the years have gone on. But I know some people that they hit their middle age and suddenly they have the ability to grow an immense amount of facial hair. And it seems like the darker your hair, the faster it will grow in. That's what it seems like to me. By the way, I saw that Phil from Duck Dynasty passed away. It was very unfortunate. He had a good testimony, incredible testimony. If you ever get the chance to watch that on YouTube, definitely worth it. Incredible testimony. He had a whole lot of mistakes that he did in his life. Kind of like Milo. A whole lot of mistakes that ended him up in a pretty bad place. And he didn't really want to change at all. He had no motivation for it. And it wasn't until he started thinking about his soul that he really started to realize the consequences of his life. And he had an incredible transformation. It was a painful transition for him, but it was a transition that made him a new man. Incredible story. That's the inspiration behind, in that sense, behind a lot of Milo's characters. The idea of somebody who messes up in their youth, even though they had all the preparation to help them avoid the mistake, and they still make the mistake. And then they have to live with the consequences. But their past, while it haunts them, it also serves as a form of inspiration and restoration. Well, we should bring it to a close at this point. It's been 2 hours, 45 minutes for the stream. I'm trying to start earlier in the day. I'm also ending earlier. Of course, when I say earlier, I mean I'm starting by like an hour and a half earlier than typical. But anyway, we're going to be... I'm intending to do some more tomorrow night. We'll see. It kind of depends on when I get back. But we'll be trying something. We'll separate there, actually, because I think I'm going to have to go back and redesign some of those elements there. Anyway, this image is coming along nicely. We're not quite done yet. We probably need another 2 sessions of this before we're ready to take it to the paper and draw it out by hand. But we're going to call it there. We don't have... we just have one... viewer on both Rumble and Twitch. I don't think... I think I actually might be myself right now. Kind of hard to tell. But we're going to be calling it there. We won't be doing a rating for tonight. My idea is that you rate when you have like 2-3 people right now. But anyway, have a very pleasant evening and morning, everybody. Just a reminder to each and every one of you, be civil to one another, no matter what your past is. And we will see you all next time. Milo's story is coming together nicely, and I look forward to sharing it with you. It will be a complete part when it does get released. And that will be very soon. At least compared to what it was last year. Anyway, we'll be seeing you all later.